Big show coming up, Hammer. We're talking NBA scoring records, trades, and the Bucks sack their head coach.
And we go in depth and we analyse who's going to make the playoffs, who makes the play-ins in the NBL, and will the refs give Aaron Baines a fair go?
Let's get into it.
This is the Basketball Show with Shane the Hammer Heel. What they gonna say next?
Hammer, time for our starting five. We're talking Brisbane and the Taipans, a.k.a. Aaron Baines up against Lat Mayen. We know that they've got some history. Things got pretty tense again when they played last round. But you want to highlight a few things from that one?
Well, I mean, I want to start with saying I was pretty hard on Aaron Baines and his reaction when he got his suspension and a deserved suspension. But the referees needed to be on guard with this. Mayen hasn't played a big role. And if we have a look at the highlight and the incident that happened, Baines' teammate is still dribbling the ball when Mayen's turned his back on the play, starts to make contact, holding Baines. He initiates all the contact. Baines has got his eye on being able to get to the offensive rebound. And the whole time he's been held. A call needs to be made. And then all of a sudden they don't call anything until there's Baines reacting from 3, 4, 5 seconds or whatever it is of being held. I mean, it was a really poor incident, I think, for the NBL referees. It should have been all over that.
Well, Adam Ford's also come out and talked about the fact that, you know, he's been pretty unimpressed with the referees. It was super sarcastic in that presser the other night after they beat the Hawks. Is it something that you think the NBL is doing enough to try and address?
I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, I'm sort of in the middle here because, you know, the coaches have an opportunity to be able to, you know, call the referees out when they're making mistakes by challenging. So if they continually make mistakes and they handle those right, then, you know, they may get 4 or 5. I don't know what the record is for the most, you know, wrong calls they've been able to challenge, but they continually be able to get that done. I was just talking about this incident and they got it wrong. They needed to be better and had to go to the video. And I still don't think they got it right when they went to the video.
Plenty of players putting their name up for the most improved player of the year. You've got a smoky for us, though. Talk to me.
Yeah, Joe. I mean, I want to talk about Hiram Harris, and there's going to be other players that probably have bigger improvement in points and rebounds and everything else, but probably no one's had a bigger impact in their role. And this is a guy that over the years hasn't found a way to have a consistent role, let alone on a team that has a chance to be able to seriously compete for a championship. He has made a huge difference. His effort in rebounding, his screening. Bryce Cotton's become a better player since his injection in the starting 5 as well. And I think his impact on getting wins is more important than the statistical side of what Hiram Harris is doing. I've been really impressed, and well done to John Riley for taking a more talented player out of the starting lineup, putting a role player in because the balance has made it all work for them.
Yeah, it's been great to see him doing really well. I'd put Tanner Krebs in the same sort of conversation at Melbourne as well. I think he's had an awesome impact for them this season. Let's talk about the Hawks and Justin Tatum. It feels like it's a general consensus now that, you know, he should remain at the club as the head coach. They haven't obviously made that decision or signed the paperwork, or at least we don't know about it if they have. They have a really tough run home, though. Do you think that they should wait and see this out, or do you think they should be making that move now?
I think for both sides, they need to get it done. I think Tatum's done really well, and I think he's carried himself really well. The way he's spoken, the way his team's been able to react after he came in as the head coach. So I think he's proven himself. And the danger for me is that they're going to go down the gurgler from here. They've stubbed their toe, Jojo. The fairy tale of them coming good is finished. They lost 2 on the weekend, and they just look like it's petering out. And I don't think that they should then get to the situation if they go on a downward spiral and they finish in the bottom 2, that then they're starting to second guess themselves. So I reckon get it done, and I think it works for both parties.
5.
These are your Hoops highlights thanks to Boost Mobile this week. It's Marcus Lee getting us going.
Hoop 40. Take that one.
Well, he's in no man's land.
4.
on the bounce. Onyeka throws it down.
DeJounte sets this up because he pauses him right there. Allows Onyeka to come there. Trey yells. Basically tries to take the...
3.
Here comes De'Aaron Fox. Trey. For JaVale. Oh, JaVale! McGee with the hammer.
Here's one thing JaVale McGee can do. He can pump up a crowd, and he slams this down right here. Hangs on the rim, has something to say about it. The crowd totally...
2.
Nurk with the rock. Finds Durant, raising up for the win. Got the lead, but there is 1.6 on the clock.
Great pass here from Nurkic. You kind of wish there was no time left, right?
1.
Wants it back, drops the shoulder, step back, couldn't finish. They've still got time though. Here's the shot for the win! For the win! Can't do it! The Taipans and Lat Mayen break the hearts of the Hawks.
There's Abu the other way.
Lat Mayen with the dagger, and with that, Hammer reckons the Hawk season is over. Those are your Hoops highlights this week, thanks to Boost Mobile. Time for Points Made now with the Mayor of Brisbane himself, Derek Rucker. D, how you doing this week?
I'm great, Joe. Hammer, what's up?
Yeah, all good, mate. Ready for this.
Big news in the NBA, guys. The Bucks have sacked their head coach, Adrian Griffin. They are second in the East, 30-13 on the season. This feels like something behind the scenes is going wrong for them to have made such a drastic change.
Shane, I don't know what's going on there, but there's been instability all throughout the season. And this guy's only started. He's 30-13. Ultimately, Shane, Giannis must have been like, nah, this ain't working for me. We got to change this. That's the only way that this would get done right now.
Well, you've got to question the Bucks management, surely. I mean, you know, they sacked Bud last year. They go to the market, they do their research, come up with a guy that they think is going to take them forward for the next handful of years, and have the record, as you say, 30-13, and then get rid of him before the All-Star break. I mean, that's on management. You haven't made the right decisions before. Have they made it now? What's going on in the locker room? Who knows?
Well, there was word that Adrian Griffin was Antetokounmpo's guy, right? And this probably leads back to your LeBron theory and don't let players be GMs. Now you've got to go back against Giannis, or either Giannis has gone in there, scratched his head to ownership and said, hey, I may have gotten this wrong. We got to get rid of this guy. But the big winner could be Doc Rivers. I'd love to see Doc Rivers coach that team.
Speaking of scoring, there have been some ridiculous numbers being put up recently. Joel with a 70-piece, Kat had 62, I think KD had, 43 or something on the same day. What is going on, first of all? And secondly, who is the best scorer in the game right now?
That's tough. Wow. That's a tough one. But you'd have to look at Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic. Those guys put up numbers every night. They're really consistent. They're getting about 33, 34, 35 points a game. But I think Embiid has that upside because he can get inside and he's so physically dominant, Shane. He gets to the free throw line, and he's got the mindset also. You scored 61 in a game. You know what it takes to go out there and be really aggressive and really sharp. But let's talk about Kat yesterday. Is that not the most Kat thing ever? To score 62, have 44 at the half, but your team loses an 18-point lead late in the third quarter. You finish with 62, but you bomb out at the end and can't get any buckets to help your team win. That is Kat in all his greatness and in all his flaws.
That is so true. But, you know, I've got a bit of a different take about that with Minnesota. And I know the coach frowned upon it and he said they disrespected the game. And I saw Anthony Edwards in his interview and he put his hand up and he said he shouldn't have done it. But my take on that is that it's actually a positive. Anthony Edwards is a superstar of the league. He is somebody that is going to be one of the greats of this era. And he was happy to be able to sit back and be joyful for his teammate to go and get 60 points. There's a lot of stars in this league that aren't prepared to be able to do that and aren't happy for their teammates and are more pissed that they're not being in the limelight and getting the shots themselves. So I think it's a positive for the T-Wolves long term.
That's really true, especially in this era. We hear so many stories about the selfishness and guys wanting to be all about them. But can we talk about the coach, Chris Finch? Where's your accountability in all this, Pat? You were playing the Charlotte Hornets and you let them come back on you. Where were your defensive adjustments? You let them put 128 up on you, and you're talking about the players? I don't like that either, Shane.
And fair enough, too.
All right, time to go in depth. We are talking the road home for each of the NBL teams, Hammer. We'll kick it off with the top two, Melbourne and Perth. We essentially know that this is going to be the case. But talk to me about their run home and how you see that playing out.
Well, they are going to be the top two teams. They've been the class teams for the majority of the season. Melbourne from the very start of the season, and now Perth being on this huge run that they've been on, and probably the hottest team in the league with the way they've been playing. Now, it's conceivable that Perth could get top spot, but probably unlikely just because that Melbourne's got the head-to-head. They've already won the series 2-1. So I think it's going to end up Melbourne-Perth, but it'd be very difficult for anyone to get in that top two other than those two teams, Jojo.
No, I think I agree with you there. This is where it gets interesting, though. The Jack Jumpers and Bullets make up the top four at the moment. Whether it finishes that way is another question. So the Jack Jumpers road home, they've got the Breakers, Taipans, 36ers, Phoenix, and Wildcats. Not terrible. The Bullets, they've only got 4 left. So that's the sort of key for them. They've got Melbourne United, the Hawks, 36ers, and Breakers. They will look at that and say, we need at least 3 of those 4, right?
Yeah, at least 3. So I've actually got Sydney and Tasmania finishing in 3rd and 4th spot. Sydney's got a really good run home. They play Southeast Melbourne twice. They've got Melbourne at home, Adelaide away, and then the Hawks also at home. So I think they've got a really favourable draw. I think that there's an opportunity for them to win at least 3 of those, maybe more. And Tasmania, I think, will make up that top 4. They've just got, a game advantage already over Brisbane. They've got an extra game they have to play, and I think they've got more winnable games. But in saying that, some of those games are 50-50, like at New Zealand. That's going to be a really tough game. At Cairns, tough one. Versus Adelaide at home, I think they'll beat Southeast Melbourne, and then they verse Perth in the last round. So, it's going to be intriguing how this all rolls out at the end of the season.
You talk about 50-50 games. I don't think I would ever put a head-to-head bet on across this entire league. Like, day to day, you do not know who's going to come out on top. So you've got the Kings and Jack Jumpers making up the top 4. So Bullets, Taipans, Breakers, and the Hawks, which previously in the show you've already ruled out. So who makes the play-in then, and who misses out?
Well, I think, Brisbane are playing some really good basketball. You can't help but be really impressed and think that they deserve an opportunity to be a play-in team and challenge the 3rd and 4th team. So I've got them making it. And New Zealand's got the advantage because they've got more games up their sleeve. They still have to play Tassie, Illawarra, Perth, Illawarra, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide. A lot of winnable games there, but some tough games as well, competing against teams that are trying to make that top 4 or playing games. But I think with the talent that New Zealand's got and now being back at full strength, I think they're going to have opportunities to go on a little bit of a run and I think get themselves into that play-in spot. And I think this is why the play-ins so valuable and so important to the NBL, because it keeps teams like New Zealand that have been decimated with injuries for so long, so many key players out for extended periods of time. If they get things going, they've got the talent to, make the play-in and then seriously compete to be able to get involved in the playoffs. If they get that opportunity, they'd first have to go through Brisbane with the way I've got it out, and Brisbane are a tough team. But I think they've certainly got they've got enough talent, New Zealand, to be able to do it. But yet to be seen, they have to go on the run that some of these other teams have been able to get done. And as we know, coming into the playoffs, It's all about momentum. It's all about form. We've seen that with the Perth Wildcats. They've brought so much momentum in at the right time of the season. It doesn't matter how you start, Joe. It's how you finish. That's what we remember.
And have you definitely written the Taipans off? I know they've only got 4 left. 36ers, Jack Jumpers, Wildcats, Melbourne United. Okay, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, you can't write them out totally, but I think when you look at the probability of what's going to happen, I think it's going to be tough for them. And, they've done well to sort of get to this level, I think, because they started so poorly after going to the States. So, they've been competitive, but I think they're going to fall short this season.
Alrighty, Tom Hirsch is in to talk Supercoach NBL. Tom, we are getting down to the business end of the season. What have you got for us this week?
Yeah, most Supercoach leagues start their finals this week, so you're playing to win your league from here on out, which means every trade you make is really important. So just focus on what you have to do to win this week, and that means looking at who's on the doubles this week: Illawarra, Melbourne, New Zealand, Perth, Southeast Melbourne, and Sydney. So no more Adelaide, no more Brisbane, no more Cairns, no more Tasmania. And that means if you've got Bryce Cotton, as we've said before, you're playing him, you're putting the captain tag on him, and you're hoping he leads you to a win and you advance in your league next week. If for whatever reason you can't afford Bryce Cotton, there's a few other good options. And I'd be looking, number one, at Jalen Adams from the Sydney Kings this week. He's been in great form. Obviously, we know he had that massive game the other week, and they've got the double. From Illawarra, Gary Clark and Sam Frolling, as we spoke about. And then from Melbourne United, there's a few intriguing options. And the caveat to that is we still don't know whether Joe Luala-Chul Jr. is going to be back this week or Jo Healy is going to be back, but Luke Travers could give you some really good value there, as could Matthew Dellavedova in the form that he's been in, and obviously Chris Golding, we know he's been sensational all year. So plenty of options to consider this week, but it's all about winning and advancing to get on and try and win your league.
Next question. I want to know your prediction, let me speak properly, for the Basketball Show's group. I want to know who's going to be there in the final. And secondly, if you've got any smokies for us this week.
Well, I think Hammer's probably going to take care of Ruck based on form. I think he's just been a bit more engaged and taking it a bit more seriously this week. And Joe, I reckon you're a sneaky chance to advance. I know you've been putting in the work behind the scenes, so hopefully a little bit of luck goes your way. I mean, you'll meet us in the semis next week. But in terms of some smokies, I did mention Ty Webster last week, and he continues to be great value. His price has gone up a bit, but he's in sensational form. One of his teammates, though, Hiram Harris, had a fantastic weekend last week. He's really cheap if you need to save some money on your bench to potentially upgrade to a Bryce Cotton, for example. He's just $136,000. And then another really good option is Denzel Valentine from the Sydney Kings. He's a little pricey at around $246K. His form's been a little bit up and down, but he's been pretty good of late. Well over 30 Supercoach points his last couple games. And I think Sydney's poised to make a little bit of a run from here on out. So he might be one you consider as well.
Hammer, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys all for watching, and we'll catch you next week.
This is a co-production by News Corp Australia and Closer Sports.